Hey guys, it's Two Guys in Hockey Talks. I'm Pavel, and I got
Evan.
Evan. How you doing?
Hey, doing great, man. We got some awesome guests with us here today.
That's true. That's true. We got Aaron coming back again for another show. Aaron, how you doing?
Doing great, boys. How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. And we got a special guest all the way from BC, beautiful British Columbia. We got Brett. Brett, how are you doing?
Hey, good. Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. This is not a way to get to fame, but, we're doing our best. Brett, tell us a little bit about yourself. What brings you to the world of hockey, and where's your passion at with that?
Well, you know what? My passion with hockey started quite young. I had a cousin that was in the Philadelphia Flyers organization. That I think that was '84 when Philly and Edmonton faced in the finals. We were watching, and I fell in love with this fast, awesome hockey team, the Oilers. Sorry to my cousin, but that's just the way things roll. And then yeah, and I've been an Oilers fan ever since. And we went along, and I started a blog. I think like 12 years ago, and Oilers Jambalaya. And that was back when Oilers Nation was first starting, and a couple others, Copper and Blue, and kind of built it from there. And then Evan, the host, he jumped on and he started doing. He was covering all the minor league guys, all the guys under the radar. Did a fantastic job, and this is where we are now today. I mean, still loving the Oilers, still loving hockey, even with the COVID times.
Hey, I'll transfer you the $50 a little bit later.
Oh yeah.
So I heard quite a bit of information and a lot of truths, but one lie there, that Evan is good at something, and that is writing.
No, he was good. He was really good. Yeah.
Actually, one of the funny things about the writing is when Brent asked me to do it, I was like, oh God, man, one thing I can't do is write. So I must have rewrote my stuff 5 to 6 times. They started off with a whole bunch and they got shorter and shorter.
Yeah. So I just want to say I'm concerned. Here I hear that you're giving $50 to the new guy, and the new guy doesn't have a beard. Like, what is going on, Evan? This is just... What are we indicting you for at this point?
Hey, quick question, Brent. Who was your connection or person you knew within the organization? Players.
Well, it ended up being Eric Rogers at Oklahoma City.
Okay, yeah.
The Barons, and then just kind of progressed from there. You kind of got a little insight with Chris Westcott and a couple of other guys, and you just kind of sneak your way in, and it's kind of cool. I mean, even now, like the Oilers anthem singer, he's a friend on Facebook, and he's a pretty cool guy, like outside of being the singer, right? So it's different facets of people's lives, right?
It's amazing. I was going to say just a tidbit for everybody here. So when I met my wife back in '88, I found out that her family knew Bob Froese. And so people that don't know, Pelle Lindbergh was my idol as a goalie. Tragically, after he had died, of course, Bob Froese was the one guy that was still in place. And so my wife had told me how she had known this guy. And I was just like, well, that's crazy. But turns out that they actually knew his father, who struggled with mental health, much like Joe Murphy has recently. And they were reaching out to him and had got connection with his son, who just happened to be Bob Froese out in Ontario. So so that was a cool little connection line back in the day. Never got to meet the guy though. That would have been cool, man. The two of them combined for a great Williams Jennings trophy. So you know what? But that's another show, another day, guys. So Pavel, why don't we get going here? Let's start this off with the 2 most underrated goal scorers in NHL history. Underrated goal scorers.
Oh, that's true. We're hoping to know what everyone's thoughts are. We'll get Aaron to start off on what they think is the most underrated scorer in the NHL of all time. Now, they could be active, or they could have been retired by now. No pressure, Aaron, but obviously it's Gretzky, like, honestly. But no, we're trying to look at some of the stars that aren't necessarily the superstars, the legendary makers, but the guys that just flew under the radar. So, Aaron, did you have any thoughts on who some of they are?
Well, I'm just trying to think if Gretzky ever scored any goals now that you bring that up. He might have had a few. So the guys that I kind of had in mind, they are retired. They are fairly high up on the list, but they kind of caught me off guard in the sense that I know how good they are, but I didn't think they scored as much as they did. So the first one I had is Ron Francis. And the reason I say that is, yeah, he's an excellent player, over 1,000 points. You might say that's not underrated at all, but with him, what do you think? You think of a guy that is an absolute playmaker. He can pass the puck like nobody's business. And most of his points were assists. But the man was pretty close to 600 goals. And in the NHL, that's an incredible feat. But we don't talk about his goal scoring ability. We talk about his points, games played, and his assists. We don't really talk about the scoring factor. The other one is a guy who's a recent birthday boy, Matt Sundin. Again, same thing. Very high point scorer, very good player. But no one really thought of him. Like, he could put the puck in the net. But with him, he was that grinder who was able to put the puck in, and he was also throwing his body around like mad. So I realized they're not the most underrated, but when I was just kind of going through the list and I saw they were both above the 500 number, I'm like, wow, I actually did not expect that.
Something that stands out to me when you talk about those two is the Quebec Nordique and the Hartford Whalers. When you talk about Ron Francis, we're talking about non-existing teams even now. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
I dig it, and I mean, I'm excited to see what Ron Francis does with Seattle, because he's taking over there, and it'll be interesting if he can find some players of that caliber to score as well.
Well, let's see if he can help. Let's see if he can help them score goals.
Brett, what about yourself?
Well, my first pick, it's kind of a little off the board. Dino Cecirelli. He was a guy, to me. He scored, like, what did he end up? Scored 608 goals in 1,232 games. That's pretty decent. That's almost, a goal every second game. But I loved him for his hard-nosed play. He was a tough dude, but he could put the puck in the net, kind of like Gordie Howe, but not. We're not comparing Gordie Howe to Dino Cecirelli. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just the kind of thing that he was tough, but he popped the goals in. And he ended up being almost a point a game by the end of his career. So to me, I love Dino, even though he was a Detroit Red Wing.
But he was also a Washington Capital. So.
Well, yeah, but that was back the crappy days. My second pick, I'm going to be a bit of a homer here. Ryan Smith. I know. Wait, hold on. I know he scored more goals off his backside than he did off his puck or off his stick, but he was still just a great. He was awesome. I love Smitty. That he was one of my favorite guys. He only did score 386 goals. I know that's only, I think, 114th on the list, but I just thought he was a great underrated goal scorer. When you needed a goal, Smitty was there to put his face in front of it and get it in.
Did he score more goals than he actually had assists, I'm guessing?
No.
No.
Yeah, 456 assists.
Well, it's because it went off him and then off the defenseman and then in.
Yeah.
Well, they don't ask how, they ask how many.
Yeah.
So cool.
Oh, good choices. I mean, I'm a big Smitty fan. I think any Edmontonian is a fan of what that man did, and to where, with the C for his final game before he retired, just beauty. So yeah, I admire that. Evan, what do you got?
All right. I'm going to fly a little bit different than everybody else. This is kind of cool, guys. We all got your different guys you're looking at. So I mentioned him on a previous episode, but I have to go to the Flyers and go to Big Tim Kerr. Tim Kerr, I mean, he was a beast. They talked about how big Lindros was when he came in, but Tim Kerr, now he was not full of muscle like Lindros, but he was 6'3" and 225 pounds. And one of the things that he struggled with was because of his size and all the hitting and cross-checking that he dealt with in front of that net for the Flyers. But he had 40 straight 50-goal seasons, and if he had not been injured, it's very possible he could have had 7 or 8 full 50-plus goal seasons. So he had 376 goals in about 656 games, so he was a goal scorer. So that was around, 0.6 per game. over his, or maybe it was just below that. Sorry, actually. But anyway, in his junior, though, he scored 1.1 goals per game in his junior over 3 seasons. So back in the junior days. So definitely Tim Kerr. When I think of him, I mean, I really looked at him as the Mike Bossy, which definitely was not underrated. Everyone knows 9 seasons, could have been 10. But the other guy that a lot of people don't look at, they look at assists, they look at his playmaking days, but is Marcel Dion. So Marcel Dion, man, that guy, the guy, yes, he played in an era where they weren't as big, but 5'8", 185 pounds, 731 goals. He had, and so that was just about 0.6 of all his points came as goals. That is pretty good. I know it was in 18 seasons he played, but if you remove his last 3-4 seasons, his goals per game go way up, way up. So I'm Dion and Kerr. What you got, Pavel?
Well, it's the first time I think we all went off the board or completely off. So just before I get into my 2 picks, which you guys didn't pick, the honorable mentions I did want to make that are currently still active and I think have good projections of making good careers in goal scoring is Kyle Connor out of Winnipeg Jets. He's had 3 30-plus goal seasons, which, I mean, it's very hard to do these days, unless you're Alex Ovechkin. And the other one that's very quiet that you don't really hear much about because it's in Florida is Jonathan Huberdeau. He's putting up quietly. They're not a point per game, each of them, but they're getting there, right? And they're putting up both goals and assists, so they're there. But the 2 guys that I had picked were Adam Oates out of Colorado Avalanche. He had some good, solid numbers in the time, and I just took some notes so I can look.
Avalanche. He played for the Avalanche finishes year?
I think Adam Oates.
And the Oilers.
Adam Oates is an Oilers legend.
He came to win faceoffs in his later years. Yeah, St. Louis was his main team, right? Sorry, just clarifying.
Yes.
So, okay.
No, yeah. And, I mean, he had over 1,400 points. So, I mean, he really put it up. The other guy that, I admired was Vincent Damphousse.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about him. Damphousse, yeah.
And he quietly put up some solid numbers in Montreal Canadiens. There was some, personal things going on in his life at that time, but I mean, solid numbers, and the guy made the most of it. So I think those guys are very underrated. Sorry, Brett.
Was that Brett?
Oilers legend.
Another Oilers legend. We just got another homer on our channel here again. Right?
Oh, don't forget about noted Quebec Nordique Eric Lindros.
and just to throw it in for our local homeboy, how about Jason Strudwick and some of those goals he scored?
Oh, beauty.
If you're following Jason, you just want to say, no, he'll never follow us. Okay,
all 4 of them were great goals.
All 4? Are you sure it wasn't 3? Someone else got credit for the other one.
Brody, I loved you in the shootout, bud, if you're listening.
All right, let's change gears a little bit and change this up to get away from players and talk about leagues and to get away from the NHL for a little bit of time here. We've been focusing quite a bit on some of our weeks right directly in the NHL. We know that the American Hockey League is the farm system to the NHL. It's our feeder system. When players do get better, we know that they move up to the NHL. But a lot of people talk about moving your players from Europe to play them in the AHL to get them in because it's a much better league than most of your other leagues. So the question that we're posing today next is AHL versus KHL, the Continental Hockey League out of Russia. Which is the second best league in the world outside of the NHL? So which would be the next best league? And maybe if you can kind of walk through and explain your reasons why. Do you want to start us off on this one, Brent?
Sure. Actually, you know what? This question is ridiculously hard to answer legitimately. You got 2 different leagues. One has kind of got some mega stars that want to cash in, and you got a bunch of has-beens or never was-beens there. Then you got the other league that's, some of the has-beens that can't quite make it anymore, teaching the young kids trying to learn. I did some research and I looked at attendance, and the AHL kind of beats them out a little bit, which really surprised me because the amount of money the Russian leagues paying, it's a lot of money. So I don't understand where they're generating this income from. But as far as like the actual gameplay goes, I think the AHL is better because, I mean, if you're comparing that to the NHL, it's hands down better because you're learning exactly the same way you will in the NHL. Where the Russian league,
Yeah.
it's a little different.
You know, and I should mention, rumor has it, I can't prove it. I'm not going to go and start some conspiracy, but it sounds like actually a lot of oil companies are the ones paying for most of the bills for the teams because a lot of oil companies are involved in ownership.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. Who's up next? Who wants to go? You want to go, Aaron?
Yeah, I'll take it on. I like this question a lot when you asked it because there's a lot of different elements to it and a lot of different directions you could go. I mean, I think the thing we need to establish right off the hop is that they're two very different leagues, kind of like what Brent was saying. One's a feeder system, one is a professional league onto its own, but they also have different rules. In the KHL, you've got the full size ice, in the NHL, you've got our size, or same thing in the AHL, I should say. But the one thing I kind of was interested in is who the players are there, because you still have players that, I'll put it this way, who in the AHL has multiple 50-goal seasons in the NHL? No one. Ilya Kovalchuk is over in the KHL and still tearing it up. I mean, having said that, he's not playing in the NHL, so take that as you will. But there's also, I lost it. I was trying to find it again before I came on because it would have been a great thing to bring on. And it just shows how ill prepared I am for these sorts of things. But there is actually a tracker that compares different leagues in the world relative to one another, not in the sense of like what point distribution's like, but in terms of the performance of the league and the quality of the players. And the NH or the AHL and the KHL have actually been fluctuating for the last number of years. I think it said in 2019, 2020, the AHL had slightly gone ahead, but it wasn't by much. So I think really the problem is in the KHL, you're going to have a lot more consistency. You're going to have the same players and the same systems over time, whereas in the AHL, there's a significant amount of turnover. And just on that basis alone, that is going to be very hard to get a real sense of what the team's like because it's going to be so different every year versus what you might have the KHL and the talent that's in the KHL. I've got to give it to the KHL. Nothing against the AHL, but I think the KHL is just a better league.
It'd be interesting to go back and actually look at how many players have come out of the AHL from development to become 50 goal scorers, since we're talking about goal scoring, because a lot of the high goal scorers, just thinking top of the head, actually come out of the Canadian Hockey League.
Absolutely.
Interesting. But how many have gone through the system? But by the way, the tracker system, I know what you're talking about. Low tide, Alan Mitchell refers to it a lot. So maybe we'll reach out and kind of see if he's got a link to it or something like that. Because
you mean Alan's not watching us?
Come on, Alan. If you're watching, send it without us having to send you a tweet. So, all right, Pavel.
Yeah, I mean, both Aaron and Brett make some pretty valid points about the things. I mean, for me, it was tough researching this question because, again, it's the AHL is for development of NHL players, and a lot of the things that are in the NHL are in the AHL. So they're mimicking, whether it's the ice, the rules, whatever it may be, and of course, you're building up to get to that level. But with the KHL, you've got more superstars going out there, whether to retire, like Yager had gone there, Datsu, players like that. So, they have a bit more superstar power and name recognition. So they're going there and people are more excited to watch them. Plus, it's a little bit different in terms of the rules and what they're expected to do, right? So it's a bit more like win now. It's that mentality. I mean, the fact that Yager's still playing is pretty insane. And what is he, like 46, 47? Like, he's going to try to beat Gordie Howe's record.
Is Yager still playing over in Europe? I haven't even followed him, man.
Yeah.
He's still playing.
Still playing for the
so
team.
it goes to show you the longevity and what you can still do, right? Granted but what I kind of found is that there's more of a grind for the AHL because you are trying to earn a roster spot in the NHL. You're trying to push yourself. However, with the KHL, there's there's a little bit more goal scoring. And one of the guys that I found that apparently is their top defenseman in goal scoring right now, who's a former Edmonton Oiler and alumni, is Chris Weidman, also from Ottawa Senators, right? And he had, in the last little bit, I got the thing, was 9 goals and 30 assists in 54 games. So really, I mean, those are big points for a defenseman, right? He could be picked up at any point. Whereas one of the best goal scorers right now is Seth Jarvis out in the NHL or AHL, and he's got in 4 games, 4 goals and 2 assists. Granted, the league started a little bit later due to COVID, so you got that. What I would like to see, I think, to put this debate to rest, is that the best AHL team that wins at the end and the best KHL team that wins at the end face off for 1 game. It's good for the game. It's good for the sport, and it's a good way to combat between American Hockey League and the Continental Hockey League. And I think that would put a lot of naysayers to rest.
Oh man, yeah, if you can make that happen, eh? I mean, that's a whole other discussion about playing a World Cup where the best leagues of the world come together, right? It would actually, and you get relegated or something. Okay, so I'm going to mention on this one. So when I was sharing this, it was actually because I remember about the parodies of the league, what Aaron was talking about. That got me thinking. Well, so here's some thoughts. So the AHL is the natural number 2 league in North America. But it is where most NHLers go for development if they are eligible. And that's one of the things. Some of the better players are not eligible for the NHL because of the AHL because of the agreement between the NHL and the NCAA and NCAA, as well as the Canadian Hockey League. Now, if they need development, they go there. But the KHL has some immense talent. You guys were mentioning about it a little bit earlier. And geographically, it encompasses, of course, a large area. And so they do a lot more travel, too, because a lot of the American Hockey League, they do like we're doing this year for the NHL. They'll do back-to-backs and stuff. But I would probably argue that the KHL All-Star team would have an advantage over an American Hockey League All-Star team, regardless of what the year is. But in terms of high-end talent, the KHL has, the Kovalchuks and the Datsuks over the years, and the AHL can't match that. But that's because they're playing in the NHL. They would not be staying in the American Hockey League. However, I'm going to now go and say that I believe the bottom third-line players or the second and third pairing defense in most groups may be a bit worse in the AHL. But that's because there's more parity in the AHL than there is in the Continental Hockey League teams. So I'm going to say that I would say if you pit an average KHL team, because remember the big companies that spend the money, get the big players, and you're not going to have, if you took an average team over there, I do not believe that they could beat an average AHL team. And we're talking on large ice or small ice. And that's the other piece, though, too, right? They play a different game. And so it is really hard to transition from the large ice to the small ice. And I will say, I got to just throw this out here. If anyone's ever been in the Edmonton area and played at the old Clairview Arena, my first time playing a rec league hockey game, I got in there to play goal. And you got to remember, goal's even way different. I did not know. And I kept looking, thinking, man, I feel tiny tonight. After 2 goals and I was totally out of place in the first minute, someone yelled at me, "This is a big rink, dude. Smarten up." So I am actually going to say, if you did a comparative of all the different pieces, I think the NHL has better coaching. I think it's got better systems, but it won't have the immense talent. But overall, I think, would you rather let your guys develop in the KHL or the AHL? I think they're going to say the AHL.
100%. And I think a lot of the times guys coming over from the KHL are expected to fill like a top 6 or top 9 role. It's rare that you're going into the bottom 4th line or even 3rd line, right? Whereas AHL, you slowly develop to get into that role and to that position that you're supposed to fill in for your team, right? You're grooming your guys. So
what Linus Omark, right? He's always been a top 10, top 15 guy over there. Can't make it in the NHL. Not even close. Like you're just saying, Chris Weidman, how well he's doing. I do think that they produce better forwards than they do defensemen, though. And I think they do produce incredible goalies. Their goalie system. That if I'm rating where I want my goalies to come out of, I want them out of first Finland and second, and I don't know how they're developing them there, but they are. And the second, I want them out of the KHL.
So you realize you just described Mikko Koskinen to a T, right? Finnish goalie playing in the KHL.
Yeah,
Or,
go ahead.
Yeah, even Ilya Sorokin.
Yeah.
From the what's it called? From the New York Islanders, Ilya Sorokin
Yeah.
that came over. They had big expectations and hopes for him, right? So another one, right?
That's crazy. Well, guys, we should wrap up our episode today. I just want to thank everybody for joining in. Remember to subscribe, follow, like us, share on your Facebook if you could, just to help support us. If you've enjoyed it, make sure that you jump in our conversations. And want to say thanks, Brent. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks for having me, man. That's it was great fun. Loved it.
We'll have you back again.
Sounds good.
I prefer your opinions over Evan's. I think without a beard, I mean, you've got him beat. You know, if we're talking about comparisons of facial hair, you're like just slightly above like the KHL.
Yeah. Well, you got to give me a couple weeks here.
Yeah. And then you'll become AHL ready, eh? All right, guys. Well, in the meantime.
And in between time, keep your sticks on the ice.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Cheers.